Hi guys. So now it is Thursday, and we are going to be talking about Helen Keller, continuing. Like I told you guys, we're going to be doing this for about a week and a half. Yesterday, actually, looking at this, guys, it is not October 8th. It is actually October 9th. So forgive me, I'll change that in a second. Helen Keller. And yesterday we talked about nonfiction text. We also talked about text structures. So today we're going to build a little bit more on that. We're going to talk about author's purpose, and then we're going to start reading the first chunk of Helen Keller. Remember, so we're going to chunk everything, which means we're going to take bits and pieces, and we're going to go through them over several days, just so we can make sure that you guys are understanding. So first things first. If you did not attend the live and you're watching this now, we need you to go to your Schoology. And the first activity you're going to do is you're going to complete the discussion question just like yesterday, except this one is over author's purpose. So you're going to be answering the following questions. What is author's purpose? Why do we need to know why the author wrote a text? And what are some different ways that authors show their purpose? So pause the video right now, go to Schoology and answer this discussion question, and then come back and we will continue on with our lesson. Okay, welcome back, guys. So what the heck is author's purpose? Okay, so the first question we ask when we're trying to figure out what author's purpose is, who wrote this? So the author's purpose has to do with who wrote the article. Who's the author? What do we know about the author? Who is it? And then the second question we'll ask is, who is the intended audience? When we say intended audience, what we're saying is, who was the article meant for? Who's the audience? Who's supposed to read this article? So if we are looking at an article that is written about video games, then the intended audience should be people who like video games. Um, it's not going to be someone who doesn't like video games or has never played one. It's going to be people who are interested in the topic. So that's another thing that has to do with author's purpose. The next thing that has to do with author's purpose is, what is the purpose of this information anyway? Why do we need to know this information? What is it trying to tell us? And then why is the information presented and organized in this way? So why does the author write it this way and not this way? Why does the author organize it this way? Why is it in this type of order? That has to do with author's purpose as well. And then the last things that it includes is what's said and what's not said. So if the article is about video games and it's about the great things about video games, then what's not said is the negative. So what is said and what's not said? So looking at the picture on the right, by the way, that's a picture of Helen Keller. You're going to answer two questions. The first one says, based on the way the photographer presented her in this image, how would you describe her? So just looking at this picture alone, type in the box how you would describe Helen Keller based only on this image. Don't search anything, don't read anything. What do you think you know about her? Or how would you describe her based on this picture? Okay. And the second question, why do you think the photograph includes a rose and a book? What do these items indicate about Keller's abilities and disabilities? So why does she have her hand on a book and why is she smelling a rose? What do you think it indicates about Keller? What do you think it tells about her? What do we know about her? All right. So now we're going to start our article. Like I said, we're going to chunk it over a few days. So we're going to start with a couple pieces today and then we'll finish the rest tomorrow. So let's get started. The title of our article is called Women Leaders, Helen Keller. Synopsis. If you're not sure what a synopsis is, it's an overview or a summary of what we're about to read. So we're going to get a synopsis of what our article is about, and then we'll go through the article and we'll talk. So synopsis. Helen Adams Keller was born on June 27, 1880, in Tuscumbia, Alabama. In 1882, she fell ill and was struck blind, deaf, and unable to speak. Beginning in 1887, Keller's teacher, Anne Sullivan, helped her make tremendous progress with her ability to communicate, and Keller went on to college, graduating in 1904. During her lifetime, she received many honors and recognition of her accomplishments. Helen Keller was the first of two daughters born to Arthur H. Keller and Catherine Adams Keller. The family was not particularly wealthy and earned income from their cotton plantation. Keller was born with her senses of sight and hearing and started speaking when she was just 6 months old. She started walking at the age of 1. So we have this overview of Helen Keller, and it says that she got sick one day, and after that sickness, she became blind, deaf, and mute. She wasn't able to speak. So if we were looking back at this picture, and at the bottom, the question that says, what does the photograph tell you about her based on the rose in the book? You can see she's smelling the rose and she has her hand on the book. So maybe we can infer that maybe it's Braille on the book and she's smelling the rose to see what it is. I don't know. Let's keep reading. Loss of sight and hearing. Okay. In 1882, however, Keller contracted an illness that produced a high body temperature. Doctors did not know what it was at the time, but today they think it could have been scarlet fever or meningitis. Within a few days, Keller's mother noticed that her daughter didn't react when the dinner bell was rung or when a hand was waved in front of her face. Keller had lost both her sight and hearing. She was just 19 months old. As Keller grew into childhood, she developed a limited method of communication with her companion, Martha Washington, but became very wild and unruly. She would kick and scream when angry and giggle uncontrollably when happy. She tormented Martha and inflicted raging fits on her parents. Many family relatives felt she should be sent to a place for people with special needs, but back then, such places could be cruel to people with disabilities. Educator Anne Sullivan. In 1886, looking for answers, Keller's parents met with Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone. He was working with deaf children at the time. After speaking to her parents, Bell recommended the family go to the Perkins Institute for the Blind in Boston, Massachusetts. There, the school's director suggested Helen work with one of the institute's most recent graduates, Anne Sullivan, beginning a 49-year relationship between a teacher and pupil. On March 3rd, 1887, Sullivan went to Keller's home in Alabama and immediately went to work. She began by teaching 6-year-old Helen finger spelling, starting with the word doll, to help Keller understand the gift of a doll she had brought along. Other words would follow. At first, Keller was curious, then defiant, refusing to cooperate with Sullivan's instruction. Sullivan kept working at it, forcing Helen to go through the routine. So, if we're looking at this picture, guys, or not picture, but if we're thinking about this, Anne Sullivan, she comes down to work with Helen. And at first, Helen's like, okay, I'll work with this lady. And then she starts to be very defiant and refusing to cooperate with the instruction. And Sullivan, instead of saying, you know what, I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore, she kept working at it and forcing Helen to go through the routine. So she was persistent. She really cared about her learning. Continuing it on. In a dramatic struggle, Sullivan taught Keller the word water. She helped her make the connection between the object and the letters by taking Keller out to the water pump and placing Keller's hand under the spout. While Sullivan moved the lever to flush cool water over Keller's hand, she spelled out the word water on Helen's other hand. Keller moved to other objects with Sullivan in tow. By nightfall, she had learned 30 words. So she taught her water by turning on the water pump and putting her hand under the running water, and then on her other hand, she wrote out water and spelled it so that she could get familiar with the word and what the actual object was. And then by that day, at the end of the day, she had learned 30 words. It's incredible. So that's all we're going to read today. We'll read the rest tomorrow. But this is what you guys are going to do today for your activity and submit it. You're going to answer the questions using complete sentences and text evidence to support your answer. So the first question says, what is the author's main purpose for writing this piece? So we've talked about author's purpose and we started it. So what do you think the author's main purpose for writing this text or this piece was? You're going to type it in the box. So I already gave you sentence stems that say the author's main purpose for writing this piece is. The next question says, what piece of text evidence shows the author's purpose? So how do you know that's the purpose? What evidence do you have? So you'll go back to the slides, 6, 7, and 8 with your text and tell me what evidence you have that that's probably the author's purpose. And then lastly, what type of nonfiction text is this? And how do you know? So we talked about nonfiction text on Monday. I'm sorry, on Wednesday, which was yesterday. And the chart that we used is here to the right. So you're going to look at the different types again and then tell me what type of nonfiction text it is. And how do you know? So is it a memoir because it's informational story that writes about one topic or a moment in Helen Keller's life? Is it an article? So you're going to tell me what type of text and use this definition to tell me why you think it's that type of text and how it relates to the article. If you have questions, please let me or Mrs. Garza know. You can send us an email on Schoology or Gmail. You can send us a Google Hangout, chat, and we will help you as best we can. Or you can pop back on the Zoom if you're doing this during class time.